I'm Bob Hallmark in Longview. Let's talk about what you do after law enforcement. Well, there's lots of folks that spend entire careers and then retire and go on into different fields. It can take them into very different areas. But this next one I'm going to tell you about is a little bit unusual, and it's in regard to our 26th president. Now, I'm going to explain this. We have talked to this man many, many times before as a police officer with the Longview Police Department. He's also a U.S. Air Force veteran, retired. He's been a police chief in Tatum before, and he's helped us out in many, many stories. But he has another story that he's telling right now, and we're going to introduce him right now. This is Jack Lanier. Jack, I guess you have an alter ego at this point. Is that correct?
Well, you know what? They always said that Teddy Roosevelt had an alter ego, so I guess if I portray him, I have to have that trait too, you see. So, anyway.
Now, we're going to show you some pictures here. This is Jack doing, actually performing as our 26th president, Teddy Roosevelt. I got to ask, first of all, what gave you this idea? What inspired you to do this?
Well, you know, Theodore Roosevelt has always been a hero of mine. And he was one of, in school, you always pick out a favorite president. We started doing that in the fifth grade, I remember. But when I got to high school, even more, I got very interested in Theodore Roosevelt and what he stood for. Very conservative man. He was so innovative. But like I said before, he did have an ego, and maybe it was good with what he did, And of course, him in the Spanish-American War up San Juan Hill at San Juan Heights, and winning that victory, which was a big impact on history.
Right. Now, so that's what inspired you. Now, obviously, you didn't do this while you were a police officer, and this has come after
Yes.
your retirement.
Yes.
And it's not, you don't just dress up and go places as Teddy Roosevelt. You actually do things with this. Is that right?
Yeah, you do. And it's strangely enough, I had a lady stop me in the store one day and says, "You're Theodore Roosevelt, aren't you?" I said, "No, ma'am, but I do play his part every now and then." So.
Now, I've seen you perform this at different functions. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, things of that nature. Do you also take this as a living history piece? You take it out to educate people?
I do, and that's the object of it too, Bob, is to educate the public, especially the school kids. History has not been taught like it should have been in our schools, and hopefully I can bring a piece of that back, from doing this.
Okay, gotcha. In other words, by portraying the character, you maybe pass on a little bit of his persona and give them a live action look at maybe what Teddy Roosevelt was like.
That is correct, Bob. That's the aim, is to do that, and you have to put yourself into the persona of somebody that you're portraying, and that's what I like to do with Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay. Now, if you've been out and about and have ever gone out to see Dalton Days, you probably have seen Jack out there too, because he also plays a character in Dalton Days as well. And I believe that's the sheriff. Is that right?
Sheriff Jack Howard, yes.
Now, that's got to be pretty fun to do the reenactment like that.
It is. Of course, the older I get, the more you can't jump behind hay bales and stuff for cover and that sort of thing. And so I've kind of learned my lesson on that. So I do some stand-up cover now with hiding behind one of the walls or whatever in the makeshift sheriff office that we had. So.
Okay, gotcha. Now, one of the things that is interesting, I want to get back to the Teddy Roosevelt character. Is you mentioned kids. Do you actually go into schools or functions and actually talk to the kids about this?
Well, I haven't yet, and I've been in demand for it. Of course, the school administration has to approve that. Of course, Teddy Roosevelt being a political figure, that's another thing too.
Right.
Is bringing the politics, and I don't want to do that. But politics and patriotism are two different things, and I want to err on the side of the patriotism. Sometimes people might perceive that as political, but if that's their creation of it, I guess.
Right.
But I just put it out there.
Okay, and there's no question that Teddy Roosevelt was a patriot. He had served the country in the armed forces. He obviously personified that type of tenacious character that we like to associate ourselves with here in America, American Bulldog or whatever.
Yes, sir.
And I'm guessing, what do you want people to take away from this character when they see it?
What I would like to see them as is to actually see patriotism with this, like I mentioned before, and someone who stood for core values that our forefathers stood for. And that's the way Teddy Roosevelt was. That was his aim. He may have had an ego, like most men do, but it was for a good cause.
Gotcha. Okay. How long do you intend to keep doing this, by the way?
Bob, I don't know. I'm 75. Was 75 yesterday, but I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes I feel it and sometimes I don't. But he died at age 60. But I've seen photos of him, and life wore hard on him. Having his wife die prematurely, and then him remarrying and everything else, and his mother dying same day his wife did in the same house, and he had to go to Africa to recoup and everything else. So things wore on Theodore Roosevelt, and when he died, he looked like a much older man than that. But I guess I can still do it for a few more years.
Okay. Well, I have been told at the station before that I somewhat resemble this character of Teddy Roosevelt because of the glasses and the mustache and the fact that I say bully every once in a while. Do you feel part of this actually wearing off on you and actually maybe becoming part of Theodore Roosevelt?
I really do. It's like in Dalton Days and any of the other gunfight shows that my group does. We try to put ourselves in the persona of that character that we are portraying.
All right, here's the signature Rough Rider's hat right here.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Got the U.S. Cavalry, the first Cavalry on it, on the side. And it looks kind of like an Australian Aussie hat, that they wore in their conflicts and stuff. But actually, it's not. It's kind of patterned after the one Roosevelt wore.
Gotcha. Okay. So obviously you're still enjoying this, and there's no reason to stop if you still enjoy it.
Oh, that's right. Why stop if you've got momentum? Just keep going.
Okay. All right, Jack. Thanks you. Appreciate it.
Bob, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. And I'll tag out by saying bully. Yes. And we'll have much more on this story tonight on KLTV 7 News for KLTV Web Extra. I'm Bob Hallmark.